this method is separating something into its component parts. You're trying to slice a subject up into smaller parts that you can grasp and connect back to the other parts that make up that subject. And it's really used to help you see the structure of things. It's important if I want to understand how something works, I need to see how everything fits together. The key is what principle or rule are you following to break down that idea? And the easiest way to understand this is almost like a pair of glasses, like a lens that I put on. History might look different if you look at it from the point of view of a country that is colonizing versus a country or a people that is being colonized. Different disciplines will also look at things from different angles. So a good example might be with this coronavirus, right? Some people are looking at it from a healthcare standpoint. I would look at it obviously from that standpoint, but also as an educator, that's different, which is different from a political standpoint. These are all different principles of analysis, and that's why sometimes people can't talk to each other because they're using a different principle. Analysis is a type, if not the type, of critical thinking. So, criticism comes from ancient Greek, meaning to separate. When we criticize something, we go beneath the surface and infer the buried meanings. Analysis means to undo. So just like criticism is to separate things into different categories, analysis is to undo. Imagine like a bundle of sticks, right, that you have tied together. I don't happen to have my bundle of sticks with me today. Shoot. But when I untie them, right, it's also an act of like undoing. I'm separating that bundle into its separate components. Synthesis is the bringing together of these very different parts to put them into a new order. So I take a bundle of sticks over here, A, and I take these objects, B, and I come up with something new. So a bundle of sticks and a bunch of billiard balls. Now we have the game of billiards, and we have something completely different that we couldn't do before. So here's the process of actually doing an analysis essay. The prompts that you would see in a college class often have words like just analyze in them. So that might be evaluate, examine, interpret, discuss, or the word we just had on the last slide, criticize. All of those mean analyze. And really, here's the power of this method is you can analyze anything as long as you'll gain something from the analysis. You should have a purpose in mind. Are you trying to explain something, explain a phenomenon? Or are you trying to argue for and against it? It's kind of similar to the two different types of comparative essay, right? One is just laying out the information, here's how this compares with this, versus the other one is a more evaluative method saying this one is better or worse. We're asking questions based on the principle or framework we have. So the thesis statement in an analysis essay will explain the principle of why or how you're analyzing the subject. Quote, monsters like angels are invoked by our needs, individual and collective needs. Today, much as in 1816, we feel the need to seek their cold embrace. So we see a couple of things here. Monsters in the thesis are compared to angels, right? So he almost is, by definition, kind of flipping our idea of monsters. They're same thing. Angels and demons are equal in this, right? They fit both an individual need for you as a person and also a collective need for our subconscious as human beings. And we seek the need to feel the need to seek their cold embrace. The diction there shows you why we get this chilling effect from monsters and why we, in fact, need that. You get the kind of how it works and why we need it within that thesis. Now, the thesis helps you and the reader frame your analysis so we know what you're trying to argue. My tip is to consider writing your thesis after you've done your first draft. Have a working thesis, put something there, but you won't really know what you're thinking about analytically until you've already broken the parts down, and then you kind of come up with a new understanding. What type of evidence do you need in an analysis essay? It really depends on what you're trying to analyze. Just make sure that you justify and support your particular slant on that topic or subject. So you have to make sure that whatever evidence you choose fits with the principle analysis, the lens that you're wearing. Here's the thing that's difficult to learn with an analysis paper. You can write an analysis paper on a lot of topics, but you don't want to write about everything that that topic entails. It's really just pertinent information to your principled analysis. Here are some common principles of analysis that we use. Some of them are actual lenses that we talked about before, literary lenses, class, race, and gender, or sexuality. Those are really important things. If I'm looking at a children's story from the point of view of a gender lens, I might see that certain female characters are excluded and not given the same rights as certain male characters. Other ones include culture, history, language choices, and rhetoric, right? That's really diving deeply into why somebody said that thing that way. And then context, things that are similar to it. Parsons is a college professor who's responding to the piece of Black Men in Public Spaces by Staples. So here is some of the things that this professor writes. While the well-structured essay does make general readers aware of the issue, ultimately it fails to convince us that Staples' solution is the best one possible. So we see clearly in this thesis that they say it's a good essay, it's really good generally, but it fails to show that his solution is the best. That's their thesis. Everything in the essay says it's good for a general audience, but it fails in this specific way when you unpack it. Right? Genuine and innocent, but in opposition, one perception must be false. It says there's a false dichotomy that Staples sets up, and Staples is a model of tolerance when it's not warranted. Remember that he, at the end of his piece, says he's ringing a bell like a hiker with bears, right? What this piece points out is he is not doing anything wrong. Staples, the author, by walking around it in the middle of the night, is not doing anything wrong, and he's making excuses almost for the people who are afraid of him because of their inherent racism, right? And this professor is arguing that that is a negative thing that Staples is kind of putting out there in the world by being apologetic for the unwieldy inheritance, quote, of his body.